Have you ever wondered what the most dangerous jobs in the Bible were? Forget about lion tamers or mountain climbers. These roles carried not just physical risk, but eternal weight. Men and women stepped into positions where one mistake could cost them their life, their family, or even their soul. Today we're uncovering the lives of the Bible's watchmen, warriors, prophets, and other hidden callings, jobs that were as dangerous as they were divine. The watchmen, guardians of cities and souls. In ancient Israel, the watchman stood upon the city walls. His eyes scanned the horizon, looking for enemies by night and by day. It sounds simple, but imagine the weight. If he fell asleep or missed the shadow of an approaching army, an entire city could be slaughtered. Ezekiel records that God used the watchman as a symbol, not just for cities, but for the souls of people. God said, "If the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, I will hold him accountable for their blood." Ezekiel 33:6. A missed warning wasn't just a mistake. It was blood on your hands. Being a watchman was dangerous not only physically but spiritually. You were responsible for entire lives. And in a way, preachers, leaders, and even parents today carry that same ancient burden of the watchman, the warriors, living on the edge of death. Then there were the warriors. Unlike modern soldiers with advanced weapons, biblical warriors often entered battle with nothing more than swords, spears, or even slings. Take David's mighty men. One fought off 800 men in a single battle. Another defended a field of lentils until his hand stuck to his sword. Their names were remembered because they fought against impossible odds, often standing alone. Being a warrior meant you lived one heartbeat away from death. David himself was hunted by Saul for years, forced to hide in caves just to survive. And sometimes warriors faced more than men. Joshua was commanded to fight giants. Gideon's army faced overwhelming enemies with only 300 men. These battles weren't just physical, they tested faith, courage, and absolute trust in God. The prophets, voices no one wanted to hear. But perhaps the most dangerous job of all was being a prophet. Prophets weren't fortune tellers, they were God's messengers. And most of the time, they weren't bringing good news. Jeremiah warned Israel that destruction was coming. For this, he was beaten, imprisoned, thrown into a muddy pit, and nearly killed. Elijah stood against 450 prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel, knowing that if God didn't answer with fire, he would die that very day. Isaiah was told from the beginning that the people would not listen to him. According to Jewish tradition, he was eventually sawn in half. Prophets carried the unbearable burden of truth in a world that hated it. They lived with rejection, threats, and loneliness, yet they could not stop speaking. Jesus himself lamented over Jerusalem, saying, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those sent to you." Matthew 23:37. Being a prophet was walking with God on earth, but it often meant dying at the hands of men. And the list doesn't end there. Priests entered the Holy of Holies at the risk of death if unclean before God. Messengers and couriers often ran across enemy territory with news, sometimes intercepted, sometimes killed. Disciples of Jesus were sent out like sheep among wolves. Nearly all but one were martyred. Even Nehemiah, tasked with rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, carried a sword in one hand and a trowel in the other, because danger was constant. The true thread behind the danger. So what made these jobs so dangerous? It wasn't just swords, armies, or angry mobs. The true danger was that these roles carried eternal weight. They stood between life and death, truth and lies, obedience and rebellion. Every watchman, every warrior, every prophet bore the pressure of knowing that their choices mattered not just for themselves, but for entire nations. The Bible is full of people who stepped into roles most of us would never dare to take. Their lives remind us that following God has never been safe, but it has always been worth it. So let me ask you, would you have the courage to take one of these jobs? To stand as a watchman, fight as a warrior, or speak as a prophet? If you found this journey into the Bible's most dangerous jobs fascinating, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more hidden biblical stories, and share this with someone who needs to see the cost and the calling of true faith. Because sometimes the most dangerous job is the holiest one.